the German flags all over. And she writes behind the pictures, Judah will die, said the flag. Judah will live, said the light. Listen to the explanation. This year, the president of Berlin in Germany invites the Chabad Rabbi. The president name is Mr. Steinemer, and the Chabad Rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Tachtel. The president of Germany inviting the rabbi of Chabad, a messenger of Chabad in Berlin, and he asked the rabbis, what exactly I can do in order to try to fix the Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht is that day, Leila Bedolach, is that night that over 1,000 synagogues got burned in fire. Thousands of Jews died. When everything started with the Holocaust, started that night. It was a crazy and unrealistic night for the Jewish nation. And he asked the Rabbi, what I can do in order to try to fix what we did 80 years ago. Listen to what Rabbi Yehuda Tachtel answered to the president. He said, dear President, I'm a messenger of the Chabad Rebbe in Brooklyn, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe teaches us that in every place of darkness, you don't fight darkness with darkness. You increase the level of light. You bring light. In the biggest darkness that you are, you bring more light. I will give you a side point example. One day, I was driving fast. You know, they said about Israelis, we don't drive fast, we fly slowly. But I met people that know me know that I am a flying slowly person. You know, thank God I'm driving minivan. I was driving so fast, maybe I cut someone in the road. This guy opened the windows, he blessed me, he blessed my father, he blessed my grandfather, he blessed the whole family until Avraham Avinu. For 5 minutes, he's crossing me right and left. I opened the windows, and the guy is waiting. He's waiting for me to say something. I see him, he's so upset. He said, yes, what do you want to say? I said, so, I just want to wish you beautiful days. May God will give you a long and healthy and a happy life. And he's looking at me in shock. He said, excuse me, are you a Jew? I said, yes. His answer is, I always knew that you were special. Darkness, you don't fight with darkness. You increase the level of light. Do you hear that? Come Rabbi Tachtel and is asking the president, instead of having darkness, let's light the menorah, the Chanukiah, in the same place that Imach Shimo V'Shem Zichro, Adolf Hitler, being choice, in the same place that Adolf Hitler give the best speeches against the Jews. He said, in that place, you're going to light the Chanukiah. And Be'emet, this year, they light the Chanukiah. Berlin, in Bardon Barget. You see here, the Chanukiah. This is the original picture in 1929. And this is the Chanukiah in 2018. The message of Hanukkah, we just start, is to memorize that we are all here. Am Israel Chai. You don't fight darkness with darkness. You fight darkness with light. Hanukkah reminds all of us that in every generation was the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Babylon, the German, the Spain, where all of them is in a history book. And we are here lighting once again the Chanukiah. I want to invite someone to be the first one to light the Chanukiah tonight. That one is Rabbi Yehuda Peretz. Rabbi Peretz, in my eyes, symbolize above all the miracle of Hanukkah. What is the reason? Rabbi Peretz is a convert from Mexico. Today he shares in our community his life stories. He chose to be a Jew. He's not stuck in Judaism. He chose to become a Jew. He chose to keep Shabbat. He chose to keep Kashrut. He chose to be connected to the Almighty God by his own free will. If there's anything that Hanukkah symbolizes to all of us, the connection that we have with Hashem Yitbarach. Rabbi Peretz is going to be the first one. I want to invite also Rabbi Yagen. Rabbi Yagen is going to be the second one. Then we have Alex and Eliezer. Let's clap our hand to Alex and Eliezer. You know which one I choose for Alex and Eliezer, and Alex Matatov and Eliezer Mulakandov. You know which candle I choose? Ima, which candle I choose for them? The Shamash. Why Shamash? Why Shamash? Shamash is not, so to speak, many rabbis will tell you, it's not even important. You don't make beracha, so why to choose the Shamash? Yes, indeed. Maybe you don't make the blessing, but still, the Shamash is the highest. You know why it's the highest? Because when you're thinking about another Jews, when you're going out of your way to help, to make such an event, and every event that they're making, to go the extra mile day in and day out, day and night, you deserve to be the highest of everybody. The Almighty God said, when you care for somebody else, not only that you're not losing, I will pay you reward. Alex and Eliezer deserve to be the Shamash. They are a role model and they are the highest one. Let's clap once again our hand to them. I want to invite Ben Pinchasov, Ben Moshayov, Eli Elishayov, David Matatov to hear for 1 second. Yes, Rabbi again. Yes. One picture. 1 second. Open up. Rabbi again. Rabbi again. Come. Rabbi again. Who is taking the picture? Professional. Oy.
David.
Yeah, we need to light. Where's the candles? Take it right away. No. Where's the candles? Okay, go to the back to the room. They have a fire. Bring the. No. Come. Yeah. Rabbi Peretz, you're going to be the one that's making the beracha. He's bringing the shamash. Okay, can. Let's put it this way. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Alex, put your hand around. It's not a big deal. It's gonna go out now.
ברשות מוריי ורבותיי, if anybody didn't...
Yes, it's good.
I'm sorry.
It's good. כל הכבוד לטובה.
אם אתה רוצה את הגיטרה, אני מנגן גיטרה, אם אתה רוצה. Anyway, if anybody didn't light the candles, I have in mind to take you ידי חובה, להוציא אתכם ידי חובה, במקרה. ברשות מוריי ורבותיי,
שמיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו, מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר חנוכה.
אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו, מלך העולם, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו ועמהם בזמן הזה. אמן.
אבל כן. Eliezer. Okay, last one. בן. ועל הנפלאות, ועל שעשית, ועשית לאבותינו עשית לאבותינו בימים, דוד, בימים ההם בזמן הזה. אוקיי, בן פחסוב, אלי, כל הכבוד, אלי. Yes, I'm the last one.
אלכס
הוא אלכס. שבורא נא ויאר לכם את החיים בעזרת השם מלכות ימים שנים טובות, שתמלאו כל משאלתכם לטובה בעזרת השם.
כדי להודות לשמך על נשיך ונפלאותיך וישועתך. מזמור שיר חנוכת אלוהי שירה ידיך חיתני מהגדול, דברו, גדולה עכשיו לכולם זכר קודשו, כי רגע בפה חיים בשלום אל ויעדיכם לבוקר רינה, ואני אמרתי משלמים על הדמות ולמות, ובכך חיים על הצעדה ולצעות, תעצוף על החיים ואל הדרך חסרה, ולפעול בנים ובקיר השוחר, על יודך עפר יגידך השמע, הפכת מספדים מאחרים, תצקים את הסרק, ואמרת זכה אחרות ולבדום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם מלכה.
Rabbi begins first.
How long do we have? Oh, 3 minutes. No, how long do we have until then?
We wanted to do 9 o'clock.
8:30 already. Okay, so כמה זמן אנחנו נדבר? 25 דקות?
30 minutes.
30 minutes? אתה רוצה שאני אדבר? You want me to speak 10 minutes?
It's too short already.
Okay. בעזרת השם.
First of all, Ellie and I and our team would like to thank everyone who took their time to come and to support us. So, give it a round of applause. So, if you're all wondering what our schedule is for tonight, Ellie and I are going to speak. Then, after that, we're going to invite Rabbi Yagen to speak. And then Rabbi Vaknin will give a couple of touching words, finishing words. After this, we'll all go upstairs. We're going to party, have some pizza, more donuts if there wasn't enough. And then, just have a good time. And then we're going to bring out the jelly donut eating contest, and we're going to finish it off with a grand raffle. So once again, I want to thank all of you guys for coming.
Today is actually the second event that we're having. The first one was with Charlie Harari 2 days before Yom Kippur. The second event is a continuation of what we're trying to start here. We're trying to start a movement called the Jewish Youth Movement. Forgive me. Jewish Youth Movement. With this movement, we're trying to bring all the teens and young adults that have lost their way in Judaism, have not lost their way, and trying to find their connection with Judaism, and trying to find their way with Judaism. We're trying to help them come together as a Jewish nation and bring them back to their roots, to their core. We are trying very hard. As you can see, this event was not an easy one to set up. We tried, we took away school time, we tried inviting as many people as possible. Even though it didn't turn out as well as we expected, but it's a pretty solid amount. So, the Jewish Youth Movement is a movement that's going to continue. The events will proceed. We will have more and more movements. We are trying to teach the Bukharian youth, the Persian youth, the Ashkenaz, the Sephardi, every single Jew that you can make a difference. Even the smallest one, even the most micro, it can become the macro. But you guys have to take the initiative, and you guys have to take those dreams that you have and bring them about.
Rabbi Vaknin, when he started speaking, he introduced something that that caught me off guard. He said that, yes, everyone in this room, most of us in this room, were born Jewish. And one thing that we all need to kind of really see or understand is the bigger picture. And not like why we're Jewish, but if we're really proud to be Jewish. Many people lose their connection. People don't really care. It's not like the most important thing to them. And I can relate with some of you guys. But the thing is that we're all growing, we're all maturing. And we need to really see the light in this Judaism. It's not something that we're burdened with. It's something that we should choose every day in our life. Not because like God came and said, listen, you have to do this. But no, to kind of really understand and realize everything that has been done in this world was specifically for you. This event that we're planning, it's for you. We want you guys to enjoy, to kind of find the fun and like just all the ups in Judaism. So now that we're starting this, we're making an Instagram account. If you guys want, you can all follow us if you haven't already. It's at the Jewish Youth Movement. And soon, you're all going to hear about these other events we're going to do. Soon there's going to be a comedy event and learning about your roots as Jews. Soon, there's going to just be so many other things. Like, first was just a speech with Charlie Harari. Now it's going to be a DJ party. And things are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger because it's a journey. It's a journey we're all taking. We know that we're Jews, but we kind of want to know why. What's so special about us? Why were we chosen to be Jewish people? So thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Last thing, I want to say thank you to every single person that helped make this event. It wasn't only me and Alex that caused this event to happen. It was because of Rabbi Vaknin. Yagen, the shul in general for giving us the space, for helping us make sure that everything turned out as best as possible. And as well to the Jewish Youth Movement, the group that we have right now, thank you guys very much for helping to set this up together. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce a Rav that is well known throughout all communities, throughout the Persian community, throughout the Vaknin, throughout the Ashkenazi, but throughout every single community out there. His lectures inspire every individual and touch every single person's heart. I would like to introduce Rabbi Yagen.
Sure, you guys are talented.
Clip it on like to your shirt or something. Yeah? Yeah. Good.
Works for you, works for me. שבוע טוב ומבורך, חנוכה שמח, חודש טוב ומבורך. It's nice to be back here. B'shut kol Vaknin, Peretz. We get to see some friends and familiar faces. I'm going to try and give you a little gift in honor of Hanukkah to take home with you tonight. Something way beyond any one of those wrap packages that you got in the last few nights. And way beyond any check that somebody can give you. Something that you can actually utilize. I want to go back to the beginning of the 90s when I was studying in yeshiva in Israel. And I had a mashgiach in the yeshiva. His name was Rav Gedalia Eizman, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. He was a great, great rabbi and a genius in all areas of life. And he used to try to have a positive effect on us. But we were young teenagers. It wasn't always an easy job. And one day he spoke to a few of us privately, and it was right before the holiday of Hanukkah. And the discussion was, what are our Hanukkah plans? And we told him we're going to have fun. And he said, where? And we said, Rabbi, we plead the fifth on the subject. And he said, what does that mean? And we left it like that. And he said, and why can't you have fun here? So he said, Rabbi, this is the yeshiva. We learn, we do, we clock our hours big time. But once in a while, we need to clean our head out. That was the term we used. And then he looked at us and he said, it's all in your mind. We walked away, we didn't understand what he meant. All in your mind. We just told you want to clean our head out. Well, what does that have to do with anything? And went to a different rabbi in the school because we were curious to hear what he has to say on the subject. And we told him, his name was, he's still alive, Rabbi Lawrence. And we said, "Hey, Lawrence, this is what Rabbi Eisman told us. What does it mean it's all in your mind? Can you have fun in your mind? Can you be happy in your mind? You need the right environment, the right surroundings, the right..." And this is what he says. He said, "I'll tell you a tale. Whether it happened or not, I don't know, but it'll bring you out a point." So there were two yeshiva boys that dormed. They were roommates. One of them was a heavy-set guy, and naturally, as a result, he was always hot. The other one was this little skinny, frail boy, and naturally, he was always cold. Some of us that are married in the room know what that means. One spouse is hot, air conditioned heat, this side, that. Thank God in the cars now, you know, you can set this side this way, this side that way. It saves a lot of issues. This has been an issue in Jewish history. The Shulchan Aruch addresses this. The Gemara addresses this. What do you do in situations like this? But they got two roommates. It's a winter night. The skinny guy is closing the window, closing the shade, putting towels so no draft should come in, and the other guy's moving everything and opening everything. And he's like, "What do you want? It's hot, I can't." Like this, they're fighting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. After 15 minutes, the heavyset guy says, "I'm not going to fight with him anymore, enough is enough." And from his bed, without even getting up, he takes a shoe, throws it at the window, boom, shattered. Now he got his way. A whole night, both of them didn't sleep. The skinny guy's like, "It's freezing, you're crazy, I can't sleep." And the other guy's like, couldn't be better. He's enjoying every minute. 6 o'clock in the morning comes, the sun shines, and they're both awake, and they look and they see the window is whole and closed, and by accident the mirror shattered. It's all in the mind. In one person's mind, he heard noise breaking something, and to him it became cold. And the other person's mind, he heard something breaking, and to him, it was so beautiful. The state of a Jewish young boy and where he's going to be in a few years from now is in his mind, in his teenage years. If when I'm 13, 14, 16, 18, 20, I'm proud of who I am, and I walk the streets with my head lifted up high, then when I'm 30, I marry a Jewish girl. When I'm 40, 50, 60, I see my children and grandchildren marrying Jewish girls. But if when I'm 16 or 15 and I feel second class, or I feel like I'm lacking something or missing something, I don't have the Jewish pride in my DNA, then when I get older, what's left? It just withers away. And honestly, I think that's what Chanukah symbolizes in many ways. But one of the many ways it symbolizes it is self-sacrifice for the sake of doing what's right. Today we try to commercialize things to make it more attractive and easier to attract crowds, even though on the intellectual, if we were intellects, we wouldn't always do this. But I'm going to be the bad guy right now for a second. No, life is not always easy. And yes, life does bring hardships. And there are times that you actually have to struggle. And in order to make a change, even the most minute one, sometimes it takes large effort. But Chanukah teaches us that for the large effort that you make, God pays a much larger dividend in every situation that comes along the way. And now pay attention to this. The Rama brings down that there's a custom to eat dairy on the holiday of Chanukah. This custom came from the fact that the miracle of Chanukah happened through a dairy event, believe it or not. We had a woman who symbolized Jewish heroism, Yehudit, who goes and serves the general on the opposing side cheese that makes him thirsty, then gives him wine to drink, he goes to sleep, she cuts his head off, she brings his head to the gates of Jerusalem, places it on top, and that was a turning point in the battle. And symbolizing that, we go and we make a holiday that one of the things that we have a custom to do is to eat dairy. There was a great rabbi in Israel, I'm sure you all heard his name, Maran Yashiv, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. He was a big posek halacha. And he says he doesn't get this whole thing. He says, number one, we know that women don't go to the army and aren't fighters. So to turn a Jewish custom based on a woman who did a heroic act that has to do with an act of war is a little bit against the norm of what we would normally do. Number two, there were many other great miracles in Jewish history that happened in wars, even without somebody making effort. Like God sending an angel and killing 180,000 soldiers in one night. Or many, many other incidents throughout the Tanakh, that miracles of battle happen so much greater in so many different situations. And suddenly here, we make this big deal out of an incident, which doesn't seem like such a big incident on its own. And then he says, number 3, why the dairy out of all things? Why not wine? There were 2 parts, right? She gave him dairy to eat. It made him thirsty. As a result, he drank wine and went to sleep. So if anything, what allowed her to bring his head was the wine, not the dairy. So let's make Chanukah, another holiday, like Purim, drink wine. That should be the custom. Why do we stick to the dairy? These are the questions that Maran Harav Elyashiv Zitzal asked. And honestly, for those of you who learned a lot of his Torah, it's a little bit out of character for him. He normally wouldn't ask these questions without a real strong punchline. And here's his message. He says, why dairy? This is why. Let's go back to the story in history. The Greeks wanted multiple things when it came to the Jews. Some that are more famous, some that are less famous. The more famous ones where they had an agenda against keeping Shabbat, they had an agenda against Brit Milah, they had an agenda against keeping the lunar month the way we count our years. They had all these problems. They had an agenda against studying Torah that we're familiar with. But then there was another one. The Midrash says, they came to the Jews and they told them, Kitvu lachem al keren hashor, right on the horn of your ox, ein lanu chelek be'elokei Yisrael, we have no part of the Jewish nation. Meaning, they wanted to infiltrate into our culture. They wanted to bring their culture into us. They wanted us to be less proud of our identity as a result of viewing their philosophy as something that was higher up. Okay. And they tried doing this. And the Jews were in a very tough spot. Because if they would follow this new law that they made by writing this statement of we don't believe in God on their animals, really what they would be doing is conceding to atheism, and that no Jew would ever do. If they don't do so, they risk death. Then there was no court system. Rulers, dictators, they did whatever they wanted. They killed whoever they wanted. And nobody wanted to die. So they came up with a creative solution. Jews always come up with creative solutions. Their solution was they instantly slaughtered all their animals. No Jew owned any animals anymore. And now there's no horns to write anything on. What's the outcome of such an action? That now we don't have meat. Because in order to eat meat, you need an animal to slaughter in a kosher way, so you should be able to eat it. So for 3 years and 8 months, the Jewish nation could not eat meat because it just wasn't available. They didn't have freezers like today. There was nowhere to store it. The rabbis teach us, I don't know the science behind dairy. If any of you are in culinary school, you may know this better than me. But it seems like there is a way to make certain types of cheeses out of dairy products and preserve them in a way that they don't demand refrigeration. And that's what they did. And the product that she served this general was one of those dairy products 3 years and 8 months later after this decision to go and slaughter all their animals. And then, from this he felt thirsty because it was a salty cheese. She gave him wine and went to sleep. Comes over Yashiv and says, you know why we make a big deal out of the cheese? Because it wasn't Yehudit who did anything. It wasn't the guy falling asleep. It was all God that was pulling the strings. But why did God allow this miracle to happen for the Jews? Why did God allow 13 people to stand up against an army of millions? There's an opinion in Chazal that it was upwards of 60 million soldiers and win a war. Because there was young Jewish boys and girls that got up and said, I will not erase my Jewish pride. I will not write, I'm not part of this group. Even at the cost of the self-sacrifice of no longer being able to eat meat, of having to change their diet and their life habits. Because when you make a sacrifice, God comes back and says, I pay you back multifolds in return. Let me share with you an amazing story. I have a friend, well, today's my friend. He came up to me after a lecture in Israel a few years ago, and he tells me, I know you travel the world telling stories. Let me give you a good one. I said, sure. He identified himself as Isaac Bergstein. Isaac Bergstein. He said he was 21 years old when this story happened. It was Friday evening. He was in his house. His parents are somewhat traditional. You know, let's talk about traditional Jews for a minute. I love them. They always come to you with who their grandfather was. You know what a tzaddik my grandfather was? So for years I used to answer, and what about the grandson? And then it would be an awkward moment of silence. So now I have a new thing. I say, let me hear what a tzaddik, and the guy goes on ranting and raving. In this town, I don't know all the towns of the Sephardic communities around the world, but whatever, I personally am Syrian. In Chalev, my grandfather, he was blah, blah, blah. I used to go every morning, tikkun chatzot at night, and nitz in the morning, and study, and then go to the marketplace, and then go back to learn again, and a whole story. And I tell him, great, I want to ask you a question. He said, what? I said, you're really proud of this, aren't you? He says, of course. I said, in 40 years from now, God should give me the life and the health. I'm going to meet your grandchild. What's your grandchild going to tell me about his grandfather? My grandfather made Kiddush Friday night on wine, and 5 minutes later made Kiddush on the TV and sat on like a couch potato. So what's going to be then? If you're so proud of your grandfather, make sure your grandson has the same liberty that you have to be able to say about his grandfather. Give him that credit. This guy tells me, I come from a traditional family, and in my house they make Kiddush Friday night. This is a Friday evening, I'm sitting by Kiddush, and the Kiddush is over, there's going to be a meal. In the middle of the meal I tell my mom, I'm out, I got to go. And she says, where are you going? Friday night, stay home. Where are you going? I'm going clubbing. She says, it's too early for clubbing now. What clubbing? Second of all, it's Friday night. We're traditional. We don't do that Friday night. Because my friends are all going, you're not going to make me be the only one that's left out. I said, what? What does that have to do with anything now? For years you didn't do it. Suddenly, tonight you woke up, I'm getting older, I'm already after the army. You know, in Israel they give 3 years of their life to protect our borders. Leave me alone, I'm not a baby anymore, enough of this. Anyway, I'm going on a trip in a few weeks with my friends around the world and back. Then I'm going to do whatever I want. Either way, I'm going. I was respectful to you, I told you. Appreciate that I was respectful to you. That's what he tells his mother. His mother couldn't say much because she herself wasn't the most righteous, but she hinted to him that she's not so pleased with it. And he said he loved his mother dearly. And he said amongst the many things that always kept this tight connection with his mother was that when he was in the army and he was struggling because it's not an easy thing to do, especially where he was stationed, his mother sometimes would take a journey in the car for over 2 hours each way just to bring him home-cooked food when they allowed her to do it. He said, so he had this warm feeling towards his mom that was always there for him, and when he saw that disappointment on her face when she said, when he told her I'm going clubbing on a Friday night, he said, I couldn't do it. But on the other hand, I wanted to go. And what was I going to tell my friends? I'm not coming with you? Why not? And like this, the thing goes back and forth in his mind. And he says, finally, I got the courage. And I called up my friends and I told them, he called them up on Friday night. You know, that's what he was holding in life. I called up my friends and I told them, I'm not going, it's Shabbat. He's giving Musa on the phone on Shabbat. I'm not going with you on Shabbat. The name of the club that his friends went to was called the Dolphinarium. That night a suicide bomber went in there, and many, many people died. And the time they would have arrived at the door was 1 minute before this terrorist, Yimach Shemo V'Shem Zichro, blew himself up. None of his friends survived. Did he have to make a hard choice? Yeah, for a 21-year-old to give up on his party with his friends? I don't think the party is the big deal. The peer pressure. To be able to face your friends and say, no, that's not me, I won't do it. That's the hardest thing in the world. But exactly that hard effort, exactly that strength Exactly that fight is what saved his life. And this is what we've seen over and over again over the years in so many different situations. One of the things is less pleasant to talk about, but because you call yourselves a youth movement, I think we have to address the issue openly. Is our pandemic of children experimenting with drugs and then later on having to deal with the consequences for the rest of their lives. And none of our boys are bad. There is no bad Jewish child. That does not exist. There's no bad Jewish boy. There's no bad Jewish girl. There's something called pained Jewish boys and girls. If you're proud of who you are, you're not in pain, because you walk the street with pride. That's the greatest drug preventive that we can ever have. That'll prevent our next tragedy, self-pride. But when we look in the mirror and say, I'm Jewish, I was blessed, I am great. In life, day in, day out, we have to make choices. And the choices we make affect us for good. Let me share with you a couple of stories about choices in the few minutes I have left. I have a close acquaintance who I got acquainted through a story. I heard a story from a rabbi named El Karif in Israel. I heard this through a recording. I didn't even know the rabbi at the time. But before I repeat stories, I like verifying them. I got a hold of his number. I called him and he said, why do you ask me? Call the guy straight. Speak to him directly. Let him tell you the story. This is what this gentleman shares with me. He was a Kollel student at the time. Currently he's teaching already. And he had 7 children. 7 children. It's a nice sized family. In Bnei Brak, where he lived, that's actually called a small family. Yeah, really. If you don't have 12 kids there, they say Tehillim for you on Shabbat. Hashem shall help you to have more kids. They worry. His wife's pregnant with their 8th. She's due a week before Passover. Timing, that's not so easy, timing-wise. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. Can you envision that? I'll tell you a little secret. My mother, Brianna, had more than 8 children. She had 11. We are currently 10. But when we were at the number 8, I grew up living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I want to tell you something shocking. I don't feel deprived. I never sat in a therapist's office and cried about being born poor or lacking any privilege or missing anything. If anything, the thing that I miss most is the 2-bedroom apartment. And let me shock you even more. Every single Shabbat that my dad was in the United States, he used to travel a lot, but when he was in the US, we had guests. And not guests that came for a meal and left. Guests that slept. That means 8 of us that shared a bedroom gave up the 1 bedroom we had for guests. And we were not deprived. We were as happy as could be. I remember offhand over 10 Shabbat Chatans that my mom made for young couples that got married. With tens of people in a 2-bedroom apartment. Because if there's room in the heart, there's room in the house. And if there's no room in the heart, there's no room anywhere else. We see it clearly. It's an unbelievable thing. This guy had 7 kids, the 8th on the way, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. To him, that wasn't an issue. But he had a different issue. The apartment wasn't his. And his landlord called him and told him that he needs the apartment back because he has a daughter that's getting married. And therefore, 1 week after Pesach, he has to move out. His wife is due 1 week before Pesach. And 1 week after Pesach, he has to move out. He didn't make much of it. He said, big deal. We'll rent another apartment instead. He starts calling people to rent an apartment. But 2 things changed. One was that from the time he signed the contract years before in his apartment, rent was still cheap. And his landlord was nice, only raised it a few dollars a year. Now rent is expensive. The second was that nobody wants to rent an apartment to somebody with 8 kids. They're going to destroy the apartment. He says phone call after phone call. He would call people and tell them, I want to rent your apartment. They say, I have kids. Yes, how many? 8? And they would just hang up. They wouldn't even answer him. He said there was a point that he even told people that he is willing to sign a contract saying that he'll give back the apartment in better condition than he got it in. Meaning he'll take any renovation when he has to leave on him. And even then they wouldn't give him the apartment. And then comes a night And this is an interesting night. It's the night before Pesach. He has the holiday of Pesach and 1 week to get out and nowhere to go. And on that morning, meaning the morning before Erev Pesach, he made a brit milah for his 8th child. His wife is holding a newborn, an 8-day-old baby. He gets a phone call. He gets a phone call from a neighbor on his block, which happens to be the mohel that did the brit milah that morning for his son. And this phone call goes like this. Listen, my friend, there's a woman who lives in Herzliya. Herzliya and Bnei Brak are not that far, but figure, I don't know, 40 minutes if you have a car, 35 minutes, something like that. But he doesn't have a car, so it's a couple of buses. Who called me? And the way she has my number was years ago I did a brit milah for her son, so I'm the only Orthodox person she knows in the world. And she said that her and her husband in their life never did anything to do with Pesach. Religion didn't speak to them. But for the first time they want to do something to do with Passover. Passover itself they don't plan on keeping. But they want to do b'dikat chametz. I don't know what you're looking for if you're keeping a chametz, but that's what they wanted to do. Maybe it's some tradition they had in their mind from their parents or something they saw when they were young. And this mohel tells this guy who had a baby that morning, and he knows it, he did the brit milah. He said, I'm very busy tonight, but maybe you could go. The guy's with 8 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment, just made a brit for his son that morning. It's the night before Pesach, and he's calling him to go to Herzliya to do bdikat chametz for a lady who openly says she's not going to keep Pesach. It doesn't get crazier than that. And he says instinctively he was not only going to say no to the gentleman, but he was going to tell him, are you nuts? You're wasting my time? For what? And then he said, maybe this is God's test to me. Maybe this is what God wants me to do now. And he thinks it through, and the halakha aspect of it, and he says, there's no bracha levatala, you could do b'dikat chametz as long as they clean one room, and so on. And therefore, a mitzvah will definitely be, I'm going to do it. And he says, give me the address and the phone number, I'm going. And he goes. He shows up to Herzliya that night after he's done with his b'dikat chametz, and he does b'dikat chametz for this elderly couple as he describes them. And when he's done, it was, they didn't want too long of a ceremony. He goes to them and he wishes them well and he's going to say goodbye. And the lady turns to him and says, do me a favor. And she says, what? Where do you live? He says, Bnei Brak. He says, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. And he turns to her and he says, why would you be hoping to hear that I live in Bnei Brak? What do you and Bnei Brak have in common? He says, I'll tell you why. I'm a real estate investor. I'm partners with European investors, specifically one French individual, and we buy properties in different places and we rent them out or resell them depending on the situation. This partner of mine has one son, this is what she's telling this rabbi, who went nuts and became religious. Went nuts and became religious. And he got married. Now being that he's my partner, and his son's getting married, he wasn't going to put it, his son told him, Dad, living in France is not for me, you can't be religious here, it's harder, it's this, it's that, I want to live in Israel. And he said, sure, no problem, where do you want to live? Bnei Brak. He said, if that's the case, I'll buy you an apartment in Bnei Brak. He said, and he calls me, because I'm the one who lives in Israel, the partner who lives in Israel, and says, find an apartment for my son who's getting married in Bnei Brak. He said, we found an apartment, we renovated it, we made it as gorgeous as could be. We even extended it from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 4-bedroom apartment, which in Bnei Brak terms, that's a mansion. 4 bedrooms in Bnei Brak, you gotta be really rich for that. And you won't believe what happened. 3 weeks after his wedding, his wife was in Israel, she decided she can't deal with it, she misses her family, it's too hard for her, and they have to move back to France. And a week ago they moved back to France. She says, and now I'm stuck with an apartment in Bnei Brak. I don't know anything about the Bnei Brak market. I don't know who to rent it to. I don't know who to sell it to. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know anything. Maybe you could hook me up with somebody who has interest in an apartment. He says, listen ma'am, I'll be honest with you, I'm looking for an apartment, but I don't know if you want to give it to me because I already got burnt many times. So she says, what's the problem? She says, I have 8 kids. He says, as a rental, you're right. We can't give it to you. But as a purchase, that I'm willing to give it to you. So he says, but I don't have money to buy the apartment. So listen, this is not mine. I didn't buy this in partnership. It's my partner. His money, talk to him. It has nothing to do with me. She writes down a name, a phone number, wishes him well, and lets him go. The following morning, Erev Pesach in the morning, the gentleman says, if God sent me this paper with the phone number, let me call. Picks up the phone, he calls France, he gets a hold of this gentleman on the other end of the line. He said the name, I don't remember, but he's a famous name in the real estate investments, especially in Israel. And he says, my name is so-and-so, and tells him the whole story of the night before. And the guy hears the story and tells him, I'll sell it to you, no problem. And he gives him a price. The price is $1.7 million. This gentleman in his life combined never earned $1.7 million, nor does he have plans on doing so. He earns $200 a month in Kolil. That's what he got. But he starts stuttering on the phone and he tells the guy, you know, I appreciate your time and I'm sorry I bothered you, Erev Yom Tov, but I'm a Kolil guy and it's above my budget. And the guy tells him, so what's in your budget? And he says, I can make payments of $200 a month. This is what he tells him. I don't know how he wasn't, I would be scared to say such a thing. I can make payments of $200 a month, that's what I have. He says, so how are you living now? He says, I have an apartment that's a rental and it's more than that, but we barely swing it by. So he tells him, how much are you paying rent now? So he tells him 1,700 shekel, which is just crazy cheap on Bnei Brak terms. And he tells him, you know what? My dream was, I'm not religious, but my son is religious. And my dream and my pride was my son living in Bnei Brak and studying in Kollel. It didn't work out because of his wife and that, and I respect that and I'm happy he came back because honestly I need my son near me. But I did lose out on what I always wanted, deep down, to have somebody in Bnei Brak learning in Kollel. The apartment is yours, pay me 1,700 shekel a month for as long as you can. Here's the deed. A day after Pesach, this Frenchman flew into Israel to make a bank closing on a few $100s a month on a $1.7 million apartment. What does God do to a person who has to come through and does the right thing when it's hard? When everything is screaming, don't do it, this is insane, it makes no sense. He says, I will reward you with whatever it is you need. My gift to you is, there are so many times in life that you're going to be facing peer pressure. That the street's going to be screaming with flashing lights and sirens, come to me! It's at me! I got it all! It's right here! And I'm not going to give you the story of they have nothing to sell. Because I think that's not being honest. They have what to sell. Chokhmah b'goyim ta'amin. They have a lot of entertainment. They have a lot of amusement. They have a lot of fun. They have a lot of exciting things out there. But there's also a much greater entity that's saying, come to me. In a much more silent voice, because sanity is not yelled. And that's Borei Olam himself. And he says, maybe tonight you can fight. Maybe tonight you can postpone your outing by at least 1 hour and reassess what you're about to do and the consequences that may come along with it, physically, spiritually. Maybe tonight you'll be proud that you're a Jewish boy instead of trying to cover up for the fact that you're a Jewish boy. Maybe and only maybe tonight you'll be successful. Do I have time for one more story or am I way over my time? All right, you get one more story then. Tonight I opened the news feed. Not a good thing to do on a Saturday night. It ruins your week. Just seeing everything that happened over the weekend is enough to ruin a week. But I did it anyway. I opened the news feed and I see there was one positive thing there. And I was pretty impressed that news media outlets would still carry a positive story. And it was a story that hit home, and I'll explain in a moment why. A woman was flying from Orlando to Philadelphia Airport on an American Airlines flight on December 6th, non-Jewish woman. And she had an ill child that was going to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. That's why that story touches home, because I volunteer there whenever I'm on the East Coast. And she boarded the plane first because of her child's disability. And we're talking about a baby, an 11-month-old baby. And at the end of the boarding process, a gentleman who was sitting in first class goes to a flight attendant and says, I don't need this seat. I can sit there just fine. She's holding a baby and an oxygen tank. Why is she sitting there? Tell her to come sit in my seat. The story went viral on all the social media outlets when she posted how nice it was for a gentleman to give up his seat and so on. I saw the story. I said, you know what? It's nice to see that humanity still exists. And it reminded me of a little incident that I had, I'd say about 6 months ago myself. I was flying on a Singapore Airlines flight going from JFK to Frankfurt. It has a stop in Frankfurt and then a continuation an hour and a quarter later to Singapore. And I'm sitting in my seat, and we're about an hour into the flight, and it was a Rosh Chodesh. And I have to pray based on the way the time changes were then. It's already almost nitz, and we got to put on, if you can't pray with a minyan, what should we do? But at least to pray by the nitz time. Now, some of us would say, what's the big deal? Jewish pride, right? Take out your tefillin and put it on and pray. Well, that sounds right, right? Let me ask you a question. If you were sitting, forget about being Jewish for a second. If you were a regular person sitting on a plane and saw somebody strapping himself up with black wires, how would you feel? Not so comfortable, right? How do you think other people feel when you do that on an airplane? Exactly that way. Now, I'm not saying don't put on tefillin, but at least go to the crew, explain them what you're going to do. They're, by the way, trained today ready for this because of other incidents that happen throughout the world. And they will tell you what's most comfortable for passengers. So I was going to go to the crew, but then the Yetzer Hara came to me, and he told me a good story. He says, what do you have to go to the crew for and tell them that you're putting on tefillin? You just pray in your seat quietly, do your own thing yourself quietly, and you'll, afterwards, when you land, anyway, you're going to go over there to the Chabad Shul in Frankfurt. You'll go there to the synagogue, you'll put on tefillin there like a normal person. And the Yetzer Hara has convincing cases. Over there it's more comfortable, you'll be able to put it on the right way. Here it's tight, you're sitting like this in a seat, it won't be so comfortable. Like this, you know, he's toying with me. And I'm embarrassed to admit, but I was almost convinced. But then it came back to me what Chazal said, that if a person doesn't put on, says Kriyat Shema without wearing tefillin, it's K'mei Eidut Sheker al Atzmo. It's like he's saying, it's a false testimony on himself. I said, so how am I going to say Shema, pray Shachrit without putting on tefillin? What type of nonsense is this? So I walk up to one of the flight attendants. The Asian flight attendants are trained to be very polite and understanding and accepting of everybody and everything. It's in their culture. And I tell her I'm Jewish and I have to pray, and it entails putting on something called tefillin, and I show her a picture on my phone because she didn't know what I was talking about. I said, I don't want to make any other passengers or you or any crew members feel uncomfortable. What do you, like, how do we go about this? I said, and I'm limited on time. I have about a 10 or 15 minute window before I got to start. So this has to be a quick decision. The woman tells me, I can't make the decision, I have to ask the purser, the head of the crew. 3 minutes later, a gentleman walks up to me, introduces himself, tells me he's the purser. Yeah, what's the problem? I said, no problem, life is beautiful, but this is the situation. And again, I repeat the whole story. I have to pray, and this, and that, here's the picture, this is what it looks like, talit, tefillin. He says, how long does this ceremony take, he tells me. I said, listen, today is like a semi-holiday, so it's a longer one than the usual. You know, somewhere between 45 minutes, an hour, around that. He tells me, I can't make this decision, I got to speak to the cockpit. Thank God he didn't say to the president of Singapore. Otherwise I'd still be waiting for an answer. But he took me very seriously. He walks up to one of those, you know, internal phones that they got on the plane, and he calls the cockpit in. Comes back to me maybe a minute later. I was watching him from far, waiting, looking at his facial expressions to see where this is going. And he tells me, sir, come with me and bring your prayer goods with you. That's what he tells me, bring your prayer goods with you. So as I'm walking with him, I tell him, where are you taking me to? You know, like, I was scared he might tell me to use one of the bathrooms or something. Tells me, listen, in the public forum, passengers might feel uncomfortable, and you don't have your privacy. Prayer is a very intimate thing between man and God. He's giving me musar in the sky. And why would you want the distraction? I called the cockpit. They have a back room that's their rest room. It's not being used for the next hour. The pilot gave you clearance. You can go in there, go do your prayers over there. There's a pilot, a co-pilot, and a first officer in the cockpit who are sitting, and instead of flying a plane, looking at me the entire time. And when I was done my prayer, I already took advantage. Shacharit, Hallel, Musaf, singing, all the Kabach tunes I knew was over there. Unbelievable. I'm finally done the whole thing, and the first officer turns to me and says, "Sir, we want to have a chit-chat with you." I said, "Okay." He says, "We were very happy to do this for you. We respect religion, all religions, we respect mankind. We were very, very happy to do this for you. But we got a question that's been bothering the three of us, and we've been talking while you were praying and singing over there. You're in the sky. You're on the first leg of a flight that has 2 legs to it, and in total is a 19-hour story. You don't think your God is going to understand if you skip one of these prayer services? You don't think He'll get it? He'll understand. For that, you had to go so crazy. Beginning of a long journey, rest, relax, sleep in your seat, whatever. For that, you had to go so crazy. I told him, I'll tell you the truth. I met God before I was born, but I don't remember it, because He made me forget it before I was born as well. So what He thinks it doesn't think, or what He understands it doesn't understand, I don't know. But what I do know is this: if He agrees to your philosophy, great. If He doesn't, maybe not so great. So I have nothing to lose by doing what's right, and I have everything to gain. I have what to lose by doing what's wrong, and nothing to gain. So my little discomfort of asking for a favor, not worth the risk. And I'm not willing to take the gamble to find out once it's too late. This total awkward silence in the cockpit. Awkward is an understatement. One of the 3 gentlemen tell me, "That was impressive. By the way, I'm Jewish." And I look at the guy with a little suspicion, and I say, "Is this a prank?" He says, "No, we're serious people in cockpits. We don't play pranks." I said, "If that's the case, maybe you want to try the prayer service too. Maybe you want to try the prayer service too." He said, "Listen, I don't got an hour now." I said, "I'll give you the short version. It's 2 minutes. You put on the straps, Shema Yisrael, you take them off, you did your job." Some Rishonim hold that even if you put on tefillin once in your life, you're not a Poshei Yisrael anymore. The guy did it. I don't know why, I don't know when, the Jewish spark, he did it. He even took a selfie of himself. That just shows where the generation's holding. If you ever see on a Singapore airline advertisement a pilot with a tefillin, you know it was mine. But now, how does Hashem pat you on the back when you do what's right? The guy gives me his phone number and tells me like this: "My friend, first of all, I already called in for the rest of this flight. We upgraded you to first, and for your next leg as well. Second of all, we have something called a buddy pass that we're allowed to bring an acquaintance or a family member or something at a cost that's comical. You pay just the taxes. Every time you want to fly somewhere on our airline, send me a text before. As long as there's vacancy on the buddy pass rate, you got it." Trust me, Singapore Airlines and me are very good friends these days at a very cheap price. One morning, one tefillin not only saved the Jew, which was the most important part forever of being a Poshei Yisrael, but when you make the right decision, God comes back to you and says, "You went flying high spiritually, I'll let you fly high in class for the rest of your life, materialistically as well." Chanukah Sameach, you should all be blessed.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you so much.
I'm going to give the last word of the night. First of all, I want to say that let us say amen for this blessing. Our דברי תורה is going to be בראשונה שדומה שלה ציפורה בת רגל, אין לה וחללה, כן יהיה רצון ונאמר אמן. Just to give one idea, I believe another idea for Hanukkah. My Hanukkah. I believe that there's 2 things that you can take home from this message of Hanukkah. The first one, I will share with you a personal story that happened with me. When I was in the age of 15, 16, 17, most likely, most of your age, I used to go to Dizengoff Center from the yeshiva. I don't know if you know where is Dizengoff Center. Dizengoff Center is considered to be the soul, where is the clubs, all the fancy places. A place that usually religious men doesn't go there. And I used to go there every Friday. You know, standing and putting tefillin, and you know, trying to bump into Jews, and trying to get them closer to the Almighty God. Listen to this. Every Friday, there was a store over there that they used to knock the doors. And I used to ask the guy, excuse me, sir, can I wish you Shabbat Shalom? He said, yes, indeed. I said, do you want to put tefillin? No, the guy was not religious. He didn't want to do anything to do with religious. He used to bless me and my father and my grandfather. He used to scream loud, get out of here, go from my store, don't make me religious. And a nice word, he didn't like religion so much. He made it loud and clear. But you know, I don't like to give up. Every Friday, for 6 months, I used to come every Friday, knocking the doors, say, excuse me, do you want to put the tefillin? And again, the guy blessed me. I said, I love you, blessing, just amazing. I'm looking forward for next week as well. And every Friday for 6 months. Ladies and gentlemen, after 6 months, the guy came to me, said, Rabbi, can you come here? I said, first of all, I'm not a rabbi yet. I'm only 17 years old. But you know what, if you feel comfortable, why not? He took me into the stores. And he said, I never met such a ludnik like you. You don't know what it means to give up. I said, trust me, I will never give up. I will come here until 120. It's better for you to surrender. He said, you know what, Rabbi, I surrender. I want to put the tefillin today. I put the tefillin in his hand. From this moment, every Friday, he used to chase me. Can you come to my store? Give me Dvar Torah. Give me something to share. And you know what? 3 months later, he came to me and said, Rabbi, can I ask you a small favor? I said, what? He said, I want to buy 2 tefillin. I tell them, don't become too religious. Why you become black heart? He said, I don't understand, you're going against yourself. You're trying to make me less. I said, why do you need 2? 1 is good enough. He said, Rabbi, I decided from these days, from these Fridays, I will put tefillin on a daily basis. I just, I don't want to forget. So I'm buying 2. 1 to put at home, 1 at the business. And in case if one, listen to this. This is one story. Listen to the second one. I was a rabbi in Orlando, Florida, the land of Mickey Mouse. They call him Mickey Mouse. We call him Mordechai Yehudi, right? So I was there a rabbi for 2 years, me and my wife. And I used to have a tradition to call people every Friday, just to wish them Shabbat Shalom. Not tefillin, no nothing. Just, if you get into my list, I will call you every Friday. One guy came into my list, his name is Shai. I called him for 8 months, every week. Shai, Shalom, this is Rabbi Vaknin. Call me just to wish you Shabbat Shalom. The guy at least was very polite to answer Shabbat Shalom to you. That's it. After 8 months, he's calling me, he said, Rabbi Vaknin. Again, you're the most nutnik human being. I said, I know that already. Give me something that I don't know. Nutnik is a person that doesn't give up. Guys, when you're going to get married, when your wife will want something from you, don't worry. You understand what she's doing. She will never give up until she's going to get. So this is something in between. I'm not here to get you scared, just to know reality. So I'm calling this guy. He said, you know what, because you're such a nutnik, I want to invite you. I opened a new store. I want you to put a mezuzah. I went there, I saw his wife. I said, this is once in a lifetime opportunity. I have to grab this moment. Because might be that next time I'm going to see him is another 8 months. I came in and I saw the wife. She started to share with me, Rabbi Vaknin, we just bought a new house. When she told me that they bought a new house, I did, what would you do? She said, why are you doing what you do? You have to say Mazato. I said that you did Chanukah Bayit. Tradition-wise, when a Jewish person buy a house, you bring 10 people, they make a special feast. They make Divrei Torah, word of inspiration. She said, no. I said, you know, the Kabbalah said, you know, not religious people, they love to hear Kabbalah. Kabbalah make it important. Wow, the Kabbalah said, I said, the Kabbalah said that you cannot sleep at night in the new house, not even one night, if you didn't do special prayer. She looked at the husband, she said, Shai, tonight we have Shiur Torah in our home. Bring all the worker, we're making Shiur Torah. And that night I went over there, I gave Shiur Torah for 3 hours. I finished the Shiur at 1 o'clock from 10 to 3. And 1 o'clock when we finish, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe, 4 o'clock the guy is calling me, Rabbi Vaknin, I need you in the hospital. So what exactly happened? He said, come to the hospital and I will tell you. I came to the hospital. His son fell down from 3rd floor, from the windows, and 1:30 in the morning. on concrete ground. Third floor on concrete ground. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what the good news? Not even a scratch. They went, they made CAT scan, MRI, anything you want. Nothing is broken. The guy came to me and said, Rabbi Vaknin, I know that you're a messenger of God. I want to give you two promises. One promise, he made me a sandak and the second child. And the first promise is that every month for the next 5 years, he used to invite me from New York to come to give a class. He's the one that built the synagogue in Orlando. He's the one that anything religious that happened in Orlando happened because of them. You see, to change a human being, you don't need a light. Hanukkah is coming to teach us. One phone calls, one tefillin, one good deed can make a fireball. You just have to open the sparks. A spark of a Jew. To light that spark can make the rest history. This is one message that I want you to remember. That all what we need is that Jewish sparks. Hanukkah reminds all of us about our inside sparks. The Jewish one. The second message is, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know what's the problem? You know why we don't like to accept something in ourselves? You see, I will ask you questions. Anyone here that knows the answer, please raise your voice. The question is this one. If you have one oil that is good enough for half an hour, and you have two choices, either to use 4 minutes for 8 days, or either to use 1 day, half an hour. You have only one candle, and this is the 7 days. The 7 days. Either to use 4 minutes every day, or either to use one for half an hour. Which one is the right way to do? One for half an hour. Listen to the message that I took for my life. And I believe that all of us here can share this message. Many times we don't take a decision because we are afraid. Rabbi, I'm going to keep every Shabbat. Every Shabbat. I will never eat unkosher in my life. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, thank God I believe that none of you ever visit a rehab center. In a rehab center, I went once and I saw a huge sign in a rehab center, and the sign had one word, today. One word, today. In Hebrew, Hayom. Only one word. And I asked the woman, what exactly does this sign mean? She said, Rabbi, in order to convince a person to stop doing drugs, cigarette, alcohol, or any bad habit, you don't ask him to stop it completely. You ask him 1 day at a time. Maybe tomorrow you're going to continue to smoke, but today, for 1 day, it's much more easy to accept something in ourselves. You see, when you accept a big decision, how many of us after Yom Kippur, we accept, we're going to wake up every morning to minyan? You never wake up even once. You never saw the time 9 o'clock in the morning. You want to wake up 7 o'clock? We accept to change our life, to put tefillin every day. The only place that the tefillin is in the closet. I mean, why are you accepting such a big decision that you know tomorrow that you will not do? The secret of Hanukkah is one candle at a time. Light one candle, like a baby steps. You know how a baby is walking? He's making the steps. The first time he's falling down, another steps. It takes a few days or maybe a few weeks until he starts to learn. When you come closer to the Almighty God, when you're trying to change any habit, not only religious, in anything in life, remember the word today. 1 day at a time. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, these holidays is the holidays of miracles. I don't know how many of you was here when I spoke in Rabbi Charlie in the Charlie Harry event. And I shared that I had miracles in a personal ways. I will not give you too long of stories. But 3 months ago, I was not able to walk. I went into the hospital. I had issue with my legs. We made MRI. The MRI came with the worst news that a person can get. God forbid, 4 osteomyelitis in one leg. Osteomyelitis is infection in bones. Having 4 infection in one leg. The doctor looked at me and said, Rabbi Vaknin, I never saw something like that. The risk of losing a leg is 50 to 70%. Honestly speaking, I was frightened. As much that I'm always teaching about faith in God, faith in trust, as much that I'm always teaching and encouraging people to have faith. But when faith is knocking a new door, it's always harder. I ask myself what exactly I'm supposed to do. I said, ladies, gentlemen, in Hanukkah when we light, the first blessing is להדליק נר חנוכה. The second blessing is what? שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם ובזמן הזה. God made miracles and nowadays as well. Not only in the previous times. I said, God, I want to see miracles. I went into the grave of the Rabbi. I was crying, tears, screaming, Rabbi, you have to pass the message to the Almighty God. I am your messenger. I need to see miracles. I came out from the hospital. I went outside. Some Chabad have tradition to open the books. In the grave of the Rabbi, they have a book that called Likud Kodesh. It's a book that the Rabbi gave answers for 40 years. Many answers. I went and I opened the books. I looked, this is an answer. The Rabbi wrote to one of his messengers, my dear Shliach, my dear messengers, you have nothing to worry. Every place you go, I go with you. And the Rabbi concluded what Chazal said, Meshane makum, meshane mazal. Letovah u'levracha. Changing a place, changing mazal. I got the message, I was very happy. In this moment, I came back, I said, I know miracles is on his way. Atzara came once again to take me to a different hospital because I requested not to go to the same hospital. Meshane makom meaning changing a place. I went before to Mount Sinai, a good hospital, Manhattan. This time I decided to go to the Vaknin Jewish hospital, here, LIG. I told the Atzara, I don't want to go to the same one. Because in the letter he said changing the place. I went over there in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. They made another MRI, 1 day different. 1 day different. One MRI came with 4 osteomyelitis. The second MRI came out with what? The doctor came to me and said, Rabbi Vaknin, have a great news. So what's the good news? He said, you don't have not even 1 osteomyelitis. You only have a small fracture in your leg. I hug the doctor, I kiss him, I'm dancing. The guy said, Rabbi Vaknin, you're a very strange man, and so on. He said, this is the first time I tell a person you have fractures, and he give me a hug and a kiss. I said, my dear doctor, if you know what I had yesterday, you understand that I will sign for fracture every day. My sisters had no children for 43 years. 43 years with no children. She went to the best doctors in Israel. When all the doctors, Dr. Mashiach, Dr. Ashkenazi, the best doctors, she paid so much money. Until one of the doctors came to me, I went with my sisters. He said, Rabbi, don't believe that your brothers, that God makes miracles. He's not a religious man. He said, you will never have a child in my hand, in your life. If you're going to have a child, I'm going to have hair in my hand. A year later, my sister had a child. I flew to the Brit Milah. 44 years. When I flew, I called this Dr. Ashkenazi. I said, start to grow the air. Miracle does happen. What is the secret of having miracles in your life? We all want miracles. We all want to be successful. We all want God to change something in above nature. Something in unusual ways. Ladies and gentlemen, the only secret that I'm going to leave here tonight. Very simple. The Gemara asking these questions. How come the previous generation had miracles when our generation doesn't see miracles so much? So simple answer is the fact that we are alive. This is the greatest miracle so far. But still, we want to see miracles in our success, study-wise, parnasah, livelihood-wise, shalom bayit-wise, relationship-wise, getting married-wise. You want to go above nature. Hanukkah is the holiday that in a Because everything that Hanukkah has given us is that miracles that we need. So what is the secret of having miracles? Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. The Gemara said, in the previous generation, Masru nafshayu alayhu. They had Mesirut Nefesh. Today, it's very rare to find a person with Mesirut Nefesh. You know what's Mesirut Nefesh? Sacrifice. Sacrifice. You see, all of us, most of us connected to religious, but when it's comfortable for us. You know, to celebrate Hanukkah, to celebrate Purim is a beautiful holiday. To come to Mincha or Arvit is easy. You know when God will make miracles? When you're going to go above nature. When you're going to have the chutzpah, the courage to believe that you can go above nature. How many times I know people that said, Rabbi, I cannot wake up in the morning. Don't ask me to come in Shacharit. I said, you know, tomorrow if you're going to come, I will give you $100. He said, Rabbi, don't worry. I will be there 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, I don't understand. A minute before you told me that you never, in the last 3 months, you never wake up before 9. He said, Rabbi, we are Jews after all. Don't worry, we're going to be there at the times. You see, don't tell me you cannot. Tell me you don't want it. Because when you want something, you will do it. You know what we sacrifice? For some of us, sacrifice meaning to wake up in the morning. For some of us, sacrifice meaning not to speak Lashon Hara, not to speak gossip. For some of us, sacrifice meaning putting tefillin. For some of us, sacrifice meaning eating kosher. Each one of us has something that is difficult for him to do. Some of us, they are so easy to get upset and angry. You don't need to get them upset. The guy is a walking fire. All day long he's upset. He's upset with you while you don't tell him good morning. When you told him good morning, he's upset with you while you told him good morning. I didn't like the tune that you say good morning. Some people, you don't need to get them upset. They wake up already with the face like the whole world is collapsing. Some people have the issue of jealousy. They're always, how many times, ladies, when you see your friends buying a new dress and a beautiful shoes, and she looks stunning, she asks you, how is that? Cute, very cute. Because you cannot give compliment if you have jealousy on you. Jealousy is a challenge. Envy is a challenge. Stinginess, to be cheap. For some people to give charity is so easy. For the other people, when they give $5, they need 8 kg. They need to check the heart, the hand is shivering. Why? Because they get $5. Who you sweat? You need air conditioning. He's making the news. He's sending a message. Fix a selfie because he get $5. The whole world is going to know. He wants his name to be mentioned in the speech. Rabbi, before you start the class, mention that I sponsored the class. The class costs $4,000. He get $5. He wants to be mentioned, the first one. You see, each one of us have obstacles. If you want God to go above His nature and to give us what we want, we have to go above our nature. Our nature. Each one of us here knows what is difficult for him. Each one of us have different obstacles. Remember, if you're going to go the extra mile, the Almighty God will go the extra mile for Himself as well. To light the Jew, to light your friend, all what you need is a phone call, a message, a smile. Just wake up in the morning and wish good morning, good afternoon. Remember, don't accept huge decision one candle at a time. Don't accept, I'm going to change, I will become religious, I will become Rabbi, I will keep one Shabbat. This Shabbat. What's going to happen after that? It's not my business. It's the Almighty God business. Let's go one step at a time. For one day, I'm not going to keep kosher. For one day, I'm not going to speak any gossip, and I'm not going to send any message, not in Facebook, not in Twitter, not in WhatsApp, not messages and groups, so that, no, we're going to hold ourselves. For one day. For one day, I will put the feeling. For one day, I'm going to come in the morning to pray. And last but not least, if one of your family, your parents, your grandparents, or you need miracles, remember, tomorrow night, 2 things. The first thing is, Share miracles that happen to you. Ask your parents to share miracles that happen to them. It's very important before you write to share personal miracles, to glorify the names of God by sharing a personal miracles. And second, ask your parents or the whole family to accept one decision that is difficult for you to do. When you go in above nature, the Almighty God will go above nature. She'asa nisim l'avotenu. The same Almighty God that made miracles to our forefathers is the same Almighty God שבימים ההם ובזמן הזה will do miracles in our times. חנוכה שמח.